Welcome to Gold FM Speak Your Mind. I'm Pithili, and we start this afternoon show with the Chief Executive Officer of the Consumer Council of Fiji. She's no stranger to the show, so welcome back, Pamela.
Thank you.
Now, we haven't had you on the show for a while now.
So you didn't invite me.
But we welcome you back, and we've reached almost half the year. Now, if you could just tell us what's been happening and over the first half of the year, what has it been like for Consumer Council of Fiji?
I think the year started off very well. Come New Year, there were several announcements made by the government, which definitely helps consumers. And the first one was the changes they made to the Customs and Tariff Act. That was very crucial. As you know, every year after the budget announcement, when the duty goes up, then what do you see in the marketplace? They put the duty up on all those items immediately. So in other words, they are profiteering. Yeah. And that's a unscrupulous practice, because what is expected is you only charge new price for new products entering into the market where you're paying duty for the first time. So now there is a change in the legislation, which simply means that FIRCA can charge unscrupulous traders $10,000, which was not previously there.
This is a great change, because this complaint is not new at all.
No, this complaint has been there for years, and consumers have really faced a lot of problems. So now with this particular change, consumers can be confident enough, and they should monitor the market immediately after the budget, as the council will do. And what we'll require is evidences, and if they can bring those evidence to the council, and we can take this matter with FIRCA. And let's see how effective is that piece of amendment or piece of legislation that they have just amended. So it would be a testing time.
Yes, it would be.
Yeah?
Yes.
And the second good news for the consumers was the rent freeze, which is in place till December 2015. That was the most welcoming news for consumers, because now they can plan better. They know for sure that the landlords won't be increasing any rent, and they can plan the expenditures well. So that's another very welcoming news for consumers.
Have we had rent freezes before?
Yes, we've been having rent freeze for quite some time now. While I understand that the landlords are crying foul, because they're of the opinion that let the market decide, but you and I know that there is acute shortage of rental property. Right. And the prices of houses have gone up, which is beyond our pockets.
Yes, indeed.
And there are a lot more people who are depending on houses, or they're depending on affordable rent. And this is the only way they can afford a rent, if there is a rent freeze. If the rent freeze is lifted, overnight the prices will go up.
Now, there's another thing that's also brought
yes, it should.
With Consumer Council.
Yes, it should bring joy to consumers once they see the legislation on consumer protection passed in the Parliament. At this stage, the Consumer Protection Bill has been drafted, and in this bill, for the first time, consumers will be able to claim compensation, and they'll be able to get redress in a timely manner without engaging lawyers.
Now, what was the practice before? How difficult was it for consumers?
Before, the difficulty was enormous, because there was a step process. For example, if you have a complaint reaching up to $5,000, then only you can take that complaint to Small Claims Tribunal. But anything above $5,000, you have to go through the court system. And as soon as you say the court system, then of course the bureaucracy, the red tape kicks in, the engagement of lawyers, and the fact that you have to attend to the court dates and whatnot. So it's a very lengthy process. Mm-hmm. But now with this Consumer Protection Bill, the government has made the decision that it'll just simplify the redress mechanism, where consumers, if they have been shortchanged, any wrongdoings by a trader or service provider, they can take the case to this consumer tribunal, compensation tribunal. So that's where compensation can be decided for consumers without incurring major losses.
Now, how do people can still come to Consumer Council of Fiji, lodge their complaint, and you will assist them with getting to this tribunal process?
Absolutely, because there are some new provision, but as I have said, this is only in the early stages. A lot more work is required, and of course, there will be a consultation process. But this is the initial phase where the council, for the first time, will be given powers to take matters to the tribunal as well on behalf of consumers. At this stage, we are not able to do that. And consumers, they cry foul and they say, you're a toothless tiger. Why aren't you taking this matter to court?
I was going to ask, how difficult, this would actually make your work a lot easier.
It will, because we do see repeat offenders in the marketplace. And against one trader, there can be 5 or 6 complaints. So we can take these complaints collectively to the tribunal. So it'll make it much easier. The strategies we employ right now is we name and shame traders, and for that we put out a paid advertisement in the papers and basically naming the trader and simply saying this is what the trader has done, and if consumers have problems against this trader, they can come forward.
What are the complaints from the traders? Do they feel that they've been unfairly, do they sometimes come and complain that they've been unfairly named and shamed in papers?
We do our homework very well. We will not go out just naming and shaming the trader. There is a due diligence process. We do cross-check the information. Initially, we start writing to the trader. We keep warning the trader that if you do this, this is the action we will take. And despite that, if the trader continues with whatever he or she has been doing, then the council has no option but to put out this paid advertisement, which has been working. I mean, such strategy has worked very well. I must say that there are also some very good traders. When I say traders and service providers who are unscrupulous, I'm not saying all traders and service providers are bad. There are some ethical traders and service providers in this country, and I'm very proud of them. And that's where I would like to encourage consumers that they should part their money and give your money and give that business to good traders and service providers. Don't be greedy just because somebody has promised you the moon and therefore, you give away your money just like that. Obviously, you'll get into trouble.
And what of the complaints that you've received so far? What are the nature of some of these complaints?
Right. I mean, Consumer Council is never short of complaints. We tend to get a lot of complaints every year. And the first 6 months of this year, we have started with a pretty large number of complaints. And so far we have received 664 complaints for 2015. So we know for sure that by the end of the year, the number will be doubled or triple.
Even more.
Yes.
Now, is this like each year, does it grow, the number of complaints?
We have seen that. The complaints are growing in number. It's increasing every year. Sometimes you wonder whether your education awareness program is working or not. But I would like to think it is. And that's why consumers are coming to the council to get the matter sorted.
We'll be right back after this short break on Gold FM Speak Your Mind. We're speaking with the Chief Executive Officer of Consumer Council of Fiji. Welcome back to Gold FM Speak Your Mind. And, we're chatting with the Chief Executive Officer of Consumer Council of Fiji, Pramila Kumar. And, we've chatted a little bit about the number of complaints, but what would be the, top complaints from the consumers here in Fiji? And, what type of complaints are they?
Mm-hmm. Yes, as I said earlier on, we have received 664 complaints, which is, in terms of monetary value, it comes to about $1.5 million. And that's a large sum of money. And we managed to solve 477 complaints through mediation. So, in other words, what we have done is we've put money back into consumers' pocket, which would have been lost, right? And in terms of nature of complaints and top 5 complaints, the first one on our list is definitely the mobile products.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure because now it's in the homes of all families in Fiji. It's in nature. It's now just the other manner of communication nowadays.
Yes, mobile products, we've got electronic goods. And electronic goods, there is a huge issue, and this is more to do with goods that you buy for your own consumption, for your own use at home. And I watched the TV yesterday, and even at Showcase, there is a lot of attraction for people to go and buy white goods. You know, those days are gone where people will go and just buy food.
Food. Yeah.
So that's another level altogether.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, with white goods, we don't have standards in the country.
Well, for a growing market in here in
Absolutely.
Fiji, it's
Yes.
shocking that we don't have standards.
We don't have standards, and the other problem we have is, you know, we conducted a research on hire purchase, and we found out that most of these brands that are sold in Fiji, they are brands without factories. So there is no ownership of that product in China, because today they'll open the factory and make a product for consumers, and the next day they'll make something else there. And when they ship the products to Fiji, they'll put all the spare parts and everything, basically telling the traders here, that's it. Your consignment is gone, don't contact us. And there was a time when we had received a very large number of complaints against Siemens Fridge. And we had to deal with that. So again, what I'm saying is these complaints will keep coming unless and until we have better regulation in place to control the influx of white goods coming in which are not conforming to a particular standard.
But what of international standards? Don't they need to have these factories? Do they
They are-
adhere to this?
Yes, there are international companies like Fish and Paykel International. Obviously, they have a standard, and any branded item will come with particular standard and durability and manufacturer's warranty and whatnot. But there are other white goods that you see on the shelf suddenly with a new name, and sometime copied or borrowed from a branded name to sound similar, but it's not the
It's
same
not the
thing.
same thing.
So this is where the danger is, because it is a product created by the local market. And therefore, because there is no standard here, obviously
This
they
is
can bring in anything. Yes.
And that's where also consumers need to be a little bit more responsible and inform themselves.
Absolutely.
Now, apart from that, what else?
For mobile products, it's not just the mobile phones. It can be tablets, computers, and other products in the market that is used for communication. We have seen that ever since the government reduced the duty to 0%, there is a sudden attraction by many other players who were not before in this communication sector, has entered the market not understanding the product, and they are trying to make the best use of the zero duty, and they end up bringing products which are not fit at all, which is not of merchantable quality. And what we have seen is people who were selling clothes have suddenly gone into mobile phones. And then we also have foreign investor who has recently, 2 years ago, has opened up stores in Fiji in many divisions. And what we see there, they are selling counterfeit goods.
Do we not have a monitoring system for this, apart from the Consumer Council of Fiji?
Obviously, there is. There are institutions who should be looking at this particular issue. Counterfeit goods, yes, there is an office that should be looking at this particular issue. Then we have got Department of Communication that has to look at this issue. We've got TAF, Telecom Regulatory Authority, that can look into the issue. So there are agencies there who can look into the issue, but who's going to take the first step?
Now, in the meantime, while they await that, the goods and more goods continue to arrive into our country.
Absolutely, yeah. That is the worry. Why should consumers be paying premium price for shoddy products? Because, when you talk about poverty, this is how people go into poverty, because they buy hardware products which they need to replace pretty
Constantly,
quickly.
yeah.
Yeah. So they're losing money all the time in a bid to improve their life, to improve the quality of life. And so if they're trying to take one step forward, they'll take a couple of steps backwards. And that's where we need to have legislation like Consumer Protection Bill to really protect the consumers.
Now, this is, this we can branch off to a lot of other things if we continue to discuss this, but due to time constraints, we're going to have to keep within. But I'd really love to expand on it further, if perhaps when we have you on again. But what are the other complaints that you've received?
The other two complaints out of our top 5 would be landlord and tenancy. It's a recurring issue. It's a everyday issue. We have attended, in last 3 years, we have attended almost like 617 landlord tenancy cases where we use mediation to solve the matter between the landlord and the tenants. And what is required here is an overhaul of the legislation. We need to make the legislation more current, more relevant, more useful to the traders and, to the landlords and the tenants. So that's what we need to do. And the other area where we've received complaint is food and drinks. What you buy from restaurants, what you buy from supermarkets, people take this food and drinks home, they find problems. And not only that, this year we on number 6, we have hardware. We've started receiving complaints against hardware companies, materials people purchase, how the things were sold to them. And with this construction boom, we are expecting more and more complaints, not only against hardware, but also against construction companies. So that's another emerging issue for us.
And this will also play on to, with these buildings being built, and you'll come back linking back to the tenants coming in, should the property be rented, and more complaints.
Oh, yes, it's a vicious cycle.
It's a vicious cycle.
It will continue.
Well, we'll continue right after this short break with more from the Consumer Council of Fiji on Gold FM Speak Your Mind. Gold FM Speak Your Mind is what you're listening to, and with me on this afternoon is the Chief Executive Officer, Pramila Kumar of Consumer Council of Fiji. Now, just before the break, we touched a little about the complaints that the council has received, but what of the awareness? As with, of course, over the years, more complaints, as you've mentioned, have come to the council. Now, does that mean that awareness, obviously awareness is going out to the public and to Fijians, but how else, could we improve on the services?
I think we have been raising a lot of awareness. If you go back to the complaint statistics, in 2005, the council received barely 500 complaints. And today, 500 complaints is only received by Western Division, or 500 complaints is received by Northern Division. And we have not only tripled, but the complaints have gone up to about 3,000 complaints a year, from 500 to 3,000. That's a huge increase, right? It shows that the awareness has reached the consumers. They understand their rights very well, and that's why they bring their complaints to us and they demand to exercise their rights, and it becomes my duty to provide that service to the consumers. But while looking at the complaints, I have come across the other issue, which is consumer responsibility. And there are cases where they bring the complaints to us, and when I analyze the complaint, I just realize that there is no solution to this problem. I'll give you a few examples. A common problem that consumers will just make a call and say, I went to a pharmacy and I bought a particular drug, I paid $10. But then when I went to another store, I found the product for $5. And they're saying, why was that, pharmacy is charging me? Yeah. Now, there is simple solution for that, and that is consumer responsibility, where you have to do comparison shopping. There is no way any country can put all the goods under price control. Otherwise, it will be state-owned. There is no competition, nothing. And why would any trader do business? So for competition purposes, the prices will differ. And prices are based on importation, the amount of goods, shipping, freight. There's a whole host of things. But it's for the consumer to shop around and look for the best price. Now, with the pharmaceutical products, the council will only intervene if the product is genuine,
Okay.
right? Or if the product is what you call it, original or unbranded,
Okay.
right? For the unbranded pharmaceutical items, say for example, if that particular product is sold at the price of a genuine, then it's a concern because the price should have been lower. So the council can take action. But if somebody comes and complains about a branded product and saying that, why the price differs, well, obviously the markets differ, the pricing structure differs, and there are many other reasons why the prices differ. But besides that, there was an interesting complaint that we received in one of the showcase a few years back, where a consumer called and said, why are they selling a 5 kg olive oil when it's about to expire in a month's time? And why should I buy that product because I won't be able to finish within a month?
Period, yeah.
And my simple solution or advice to the consumer was, what's your problem? Probably that particular product is not meant for you. It is meant for those shoppers who know that they can use that product within a month.
That's right.
For example, hotels, restaurants, or if a family is having a wedding, or if a family is having some function, and they know they can use that product within a month, so it's good for them. But you can't stop the sale of that particular product just because it's within 1 month expiry. It's not even expired. So to me, there is lack of this knowledge about how goods can be sold in the marketplace, and sometimes it is quite, it's a different experience altogether when you try and explain this to consumers and make them understand what the consumer responsibility is.
I can understand to be at the complaints department of the organization and receive just the number that you were mentioning. Now, this part of, what you mentioned, responsibilities, and, having to know the product, having to know a little bit more and make that. Now, do you feel that this is an area that we still need to work on here in Fiji?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I'm saddened that over the years we've been raising awareness on hire purchase, for example. And consumers, they just walk into a store, they point their finger to a particular product, and the company says that we can approve everything within 24 hours and they can deliver as well, without understanding the obligation. They just buy the item, bring it home, and then what they do, because they didn't understand the financial obligation, they're not able to make the payments, and what they do, they stop making the payments, and ultimately the product is repossessed, and they're still billed, because there are so many consumers who are of the opinion that once I have given my item back to the trader, I have no financial obligation. But they fail to understand that they have borrowed money to buy that item. So they still have to pay the company, another section of the company which lent the money. And they still have to pay that amount. So they fail to understand that. And there are many consumers I have come across that they are really into a lot of debt because of issues of this nature. What happens when they don't clear the bills? It gets recorded at Data Bureau. It gets loaded there. And then in future, if they want to buy any other item from any company, or even if they want to take a loan from a bank, the name is already uploaded.
Data Bureau.
And therefore, all the doors are closed on them. So this is where responsibility is very important. And we always say to the consumers that, if there is any advice you need to come to the council, and we will definitely assist you.
Now, is there any other particular message that you would like to convey to our consumers before we wrap up?
Yeah, my only message to the consumers are that, you're the most powerful person in the marketplace. You have the money, you have the power. And if consumers can work in solidarity and only reward traders who are ethical, who provide you the best service, that's how we can shift the unethical practices that is taking place in the market. We can stop that without any legislation.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on the show this morning.
My pleasure.
And we look forward to having you back on the show again.
Thanks.
Pramila Kumar, the Chief Executive Officer of the Consumer Council of Fiji. And after the short break, we'll be joined by representatives from the Ministry for Employment and Industrial Productivity and Industrial Relations to discuss the new employment relations promulgation. All that right after this on Speak Your Mind on Gold FM. Welcome back to Gold FM Speak Your Mind, and we now continue the show with representatives from the Ministry for Employment, Productivity and Industrial Relations. And I'm glad that I'm being joined by the Assistant Director, Labour Standard Services, Mr. Atish Kumar. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And also the Senior Labour Officer, Mrs. Atera Dakau. Welcome to the show. And, the new national minimum wage is about to be introduced, and also the new wage regulation orders for 2015. Now, this is something new for Fijians, but I'll allow you to open up our discussion this morning with, what is it behind these new promulgations?
Thank you, Padali. It's very important for us to understand in terms of the national minimum wage and also the wages regulations that will come into effect from 1st of July, that is tomorrow. Yes, in terms of the issues of the national minimum wage, as you know that first it came into effect in 2014 in 1st of March, and then within that time there was a review made, and of course this is based in terms of the research conducted by Dr. Reddy on the national minimum wage. And with that the government has reviewed, and of course with assistance and consultations through the stakeholders, we have noted that the national minimum wage has come into effect, will come into effect from 1st of July, that is tomorrow, with the rate of $2.32 an hour. And this is very important because this is going to cover those sectors which are not covered by the 10 sectoral minimum wage regulations. Now, we have two aspects. One is, of course, the national minimum wage. That is going to cover all those sectors not covered by the 10 sectoral minimum wage. And we also have the sectoral minimum wage that will come into effect from 1st of July, tomorrow. Now, when you talk about the sectoral minimum wage, we talk about in terms of the wholesale retail sector, we talk about the garment industry, we talk about the manufacturing industry, building and civil, security services, and of course printing industry. All these industries come under the 10 sectoral minimum wage. Now, in terms of the policy intent, what actually happened is, of course, through the meetings of the Employment Relations Advisory Board, the tripartite partners came together and, of course, discussed the review of the 2012 minimum, the 2012 wages regulation orders that was into effect. That is in effect until today. Now, with the review in place, the Employment Advisory Board dealt this in terms of setting up the formula, and of course the formula was based on the formula was agreed and based in terms of the consumer price index and the labor productivity gain. So based on that, and of course the formulas has been derived, and with that in place, the new rates have come into effect. The new rates will come into effect. So if you look at the issues in terms of the wholesale retail sector, there is increase. We look at the building and civil sector, there is also increase. So generally we can see all 10 sectors within the wages regulations have increased. With that, we have also increased the national minimum wage from $2 to $2.32.
$2.32.
Yes.
So that would mean a lot more money for our workers in their pockets.
Yes.
Obviously with this, but are there other regulations that have been included, new regulations that have been included in this for our employees? Yes?
Yes, yes, indeed. Of course, first is if you look at the national minimum wage, we can see that when a worker was paid $2 an hour, the worker was receiving about $96 pay week for 48 hours of work. Now that same worker will now receive about $111.36 pay week. Now these are the workers who are actually, majority of them, 70%, around 70% of them are coming from the non-unionized sector. When you say non-unionized sector, they are not members of any trade union. So that's where these regulations come into place to assist them in terms of ensuring that there is a basic minimum rate of pay, and of course the workers are receiving their wages on time with the minimum rate, and of course the hours of work. All these things are covered within these the regulations.
All right, and obviously we mentioned unions and how with these non-union members. Now, there's also protection for them in the workplace in terms of LMCCs, the other regulations that companies have to adhere and set up for the workers to protect them. And, looking at these, what does that mean? Is there any change in terms of these regulations, or is it purely on the wages?
So currently, in terms of the provisions of LMCC, the provisions in terms of the sick leave, the annual leave, these are all covered within the employment relations promulgation. Now, the specific changes made is within the rates, and that is in terms of the national minimum wage, the rates in terms of the sectoral minimum wage currently that's coming to effect from tomorrow.
Okay. Now, Mrs. Lakau, what does this mean for our workers, here in the areas that have not been highlighted by Mr. Chand?
Thank you, Pedeli. With our the enforcement unit, our officers are already on the ground conducting awareness to all our employers in terms of the changes that's going to be effective from tomorrow, the changes on the wage rate.
Right.
And
So, as of tomorrow, all these have to be changed. Yes,
Yes.
it comes into effect tomorrow.
Yes.
Now, anyone watching and listening this today should know this, that by tomorrow, these are in effect and should be reflected in their pay.
And of course, our officers will be going around to visit employers and advising them on the changes in the rate. We'll be also checking their wages records to see that they comply with the wage rate that's going to be effective from tomorrow.
Now, what happens to employers that haven't had, who haven't done this? Is there a period that they are allowed
Yes,
to adhere to the new
Thank you,
regulations?
Pedeli. I think there have been talks going on for I think a good 6 months now, that employers need to change, and this rates is going to come into effect from 1st of July. So we have also conducted awareness to employers, and I believe that we have seen that majority of the employers are actually paying above the minimum rates of pay. So those who are paying above the minimum rate of pay, they don't need to worry because they are actually paying above the rate that is regulated. Now, of course, those who are paying within the rate, of course, they are paying under the 2012 wages regulation orders. They need to change from tomorrow because for example, in the wholesale retail sector, the minimum rate currently is $2.97 as of today, but from tomorrow it will go to $3.04 an hour. So that's where the employers need to change. Now, this also means good news for the workers because, of course, the take-home pay will be increased. Their contribution towards FNPF will also increase. So there is a whole lot of issues in terms of the benefit of the workers. And at the same time, workers will also be able to, of course, meet their needs. And we have also seen that a lot of employers who are paying above the rate, the workers can also negotiate and discuss with them. So this is something that the workers and, of course, and the employers with the government, with the positive economic growth that we have received for the past 4 to 5 years, we are able to assist in terms of providing more wages to the workers. At the same time, we can also see that the employers are coming in and, of course, paying more above the minimum rate of pay.
Right. Well, thank you very much. We'll continue right after this short break. We have, due to time constraints, we'll continue right after this. And feel free to also call us up in studio with your questions, 3220-906, 3220-907, or you could text into 825 and send an email to goldfm@mbc.com.fj. Gold FM Speak Your Mind continues. And, we have the representatives from the Ministry for Employment and Productivity and Industrial Relations. And we continued our discussion now with the new wages, the new wages regulations of 2015 comes in effect from tomorrow. Now, we've spoken about what the differences, in terms of the salaries that will change and the wages that will change. But what of those who don't, comply to these new regulations? Obviously, there are penalties.
Yes, thank you, Padali. Yes, very important is we advise employers, please do comply with the rates that is coming to effect from tomorrow. We also advise workers to discuss with the employers. But at the same time, if there is an employer that is not complying with the rates, then of course the penalty has increased from $100 fine to $500 spot fine. And then of course if the matter goes to tribunal, the maximum fine is around $20,000. So we are very serious in terms of those who are not complying with the minimum rates of pay that has come into effect.
Now, what of the employers? Is there any, is there a provision provided by the ministry, or is assistance for them to help them comply?
Thank you, Pedeli. Yes, we've always been there to assist the employers in terms of the laws that covers the wages regulations. We have always been there to assist them, so they can always come forward and visit our office. In Suva, we are at the Post Fiji building on the second level, and we have also our office in Singatoka, in Nandi, in Lautoka, in Ba, Lambasa, and Sabu Sabu. They can always visit our office there to ask for advice and also obtain a copy of the new wage rates that's going to be effective from tomorrow. And also, I would like to emphasize to employers, if they can be mindful of the new rate and ensure that the workers are remunerated according to the new wage rate that's going to be effective from tomorrow. And also to avoid confusion, it's very important for them to note that if the company or the workplace is already covered under the 10 secretarial wages order that Mr. Kumar had indicated, then it's advisable for them not to follow the national. Yeah, they have to follow the wage regulations that they are covered under, the business covered under. Yeah.
All right. So, is there also still time for those who are, who may not follow the proper wage rates? Yeah.
Yes.
There's still enough time for them to find out a little bit more.
I think you, Telly, I think what Ms. Bakatora has just alluded to. Very important for employers to note that the national minimum wage is for those sectors where the sectorial minimum wage is not covering. For example, in wholesale retail sector, there is wholesale and retail wages regulation. So that is covering for those workers in that sector. For example, there the minimum rate is $3.04 an hour. National minimum wage is covering, for example, car wash, covering backyard garage, covering domestic
workers.
All this is covered by the national minimum wage because there is no sectoral minimum wage there. But in terms of places where sectoral minimum wage is there, then of course employers must ensure that they follow the relevant sectoral minimum wage.
Now, obviously, questions will have. So, how come on these different sectors? It really is to protect the workers.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there's some a little bit more skilled than others, and that also helps them in terms of the pay that they will receive. And what of the employees, those who have questions? Is there a place where they also can come? They can come to the ministry to assist them in terms of finding out more about these rates.
Yes, Pedeli, as I have stated earlier, they can always visit our office. In Suva, we are at the Post Fiji building, and also our district office. We are located in the Western Division. We are in Singatoka, Nandi, Lautoka, and Ba, and also in the Northern Division. We have our office in Savu Savu and also in Lambasa. They can always visit us if they have questions or issues that they want clarifications on. They can always visit our office. We are always there to help the employers and the workers both.
You mentioned earlier that also your officers will be going in to assist employers and also probably perhaps look at areas and ensuring that they are adhering by the law, the new regulations. Are the officers going to be out into different workplaces, or do they need to be requested to come in?
No, they will be out in all. They've already visited employers conducting awareness, and they will also go out to see that employers comply with the provisions of the wages regulations that's going to be effective from tomorrow.
So they are the monitoring officers.
That's right.
And these monitoring officers, is this also areas or the officers that the employees can also report to? And
Yes, of course.
yeah?
Yes.
Now, we'll be expecting them out they've already are out, but they will be also expected after the 1st of July, after tomorrow, yes?
Yes, yes,
Right
indeed,
across the country.
Yes, indeed, President Pedali. I think very important is, of course, the enforcement team of the Ministry of Employment is boosted with additional resources given by government in terms of ensuring that we implement the national minimum wage. We have around 18 new inspectors coming into place so that the national minimum wage and of course the sectoral minimum wage is enforced properly by these officers. And of course we have got additional our officers who are actually on the ground, and with this we also conduct training for the employers. Of course our awareness is free of charge, and we request employers they can take advantage of this. We want to ensure that when we talk about the issues in terms of the national minimum wage, we also need to look at the fact that this is through the positive economic growth that the country has achieved. And of course this is achieved through the consultation, of course through the hard work of everyone in the country. And of course we also need to ensure that we continue to receive positive economic growth, and we continue to receive employers continue to create more employment of course for the workers.
Right. Well, just before we wrap up the show, is there anything else, final comments that you'd like to make for employees and employers?
Yes, thank you, Padali. I think it's very important. We request all the employers and employees please comply with the rates that is coming to effect from tomorrow. And if they have any problem, they can always visit our office around Fiji. They can always call our office here in Suva, and of course they can call on 990-6369 on the mobile number, of course, and we'll be able to assist them. We'll be able to provide them guidance, and of course, we'll be able to provide them in terms of the regulation order that we have in place. So we'll be able to provide to all the employees and of course to the workers.
Sister Khan?
Yeah, my advice to employer Pedeli is to ensure that they comply with the employment law. As I have stated earlier, our officers will be coming to assist them and also to check on their wages record and the other records that are required for them to maintain. And we also advise them if they need any assistance, they can always visit any of our branch offices that I have stated earlier, and we are always there to assist them, both employers and the workers as well.
Thank you very much for joining us on the show. And hopefully that provides a little bit more information. And for those who have not known yet, these are the new wage regulation orders and the new national minimum wage for 2015. The Assistant Director for Labour Standard Services, Mr. Tish Kumar, thank you.
Thank you. Naka.
And Senior Labour Officer, Mrs. Teradakau.
Nakawalik.
And that concludes this afternoon's program. Thank you again for joining us on Gold FM Speak Your Mind. We'll look forward to seeing you again next week, right here on Gold FM.